presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and powered by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Welcome to the podcast, where former San Antonio police officer, author, and pastor Tim Rupp walks you through real-life scenarios involving our police officers and digs into the depths of facts and opinions on each case. This is Cop Talk, and it starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Strong Blue Line's Cop Talk. I'm Tim Rupp, not in the Red.FM studio, but I'm in Western Arkansas.
What?
Hello, Gary. Yes, Gary,
Rupp.
there you are. Again.
It's nice to hear your voice.
Hey, how's the weather there in Idaho Falls? I know it hit a cold streak a couple weeks back. It was super cold. How's it there now?
It was very cold. We had a heat wave. It got into the 30s and even the upper 30s, and we got a little bit of rain even.
Wow!
But it's cold again.
Yeah, well, it's still wintertime. It's still February.
It sure is.
We've got another month or so till we start to get out of it there. Anyways, it's been raining here a lot. You know, we'll get up into the 50s and 60s here sometimes. So it's not, I told you about that snow we had.
Yeah.
But that's all. Now it just rains a lot here. We get, like, in this area where I'm at, they get like almost 60 inches of rain a year.
Oh my gosh.
It's like good grief, it's like a rainforest.
Yeah.
I mean, it rains and it's
it
nothing
really
to get 2 or
comes.
3 inches. Yeah, it's nothing to get 2 or 3 inches of rain. I got 2 inches yesterday. I got another inch tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Well,
anyways,
stay dry, Tim Rupp.
We'll do. We've got rain jackets.
Oh, good. Better grab a raft, maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, we're going to continue with our threats to the homeland, and we're specifically going to talk about churches and specific threats to churches, recent threats. And so kind of some, I don't want to say scary stuff, kind of, let's say, alarming stuff.
Yeah, alarming.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's a
the best
good way
way.
to say it.
An alarm goes off, pay attention to the alarm. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, we're going to talk about the Officer Down Memorial Page and honor officers who were killed in the line of duty in this date in history. And so I've got an interesting one here, Gary. This is Deputy U.S. Marshal Van Buren Hendricks. So his first name, I guess, is Van Buren, kind of Van is I'm not, Hendricks is his last name. U.S. Marshal Hendricks. And the end of watch was February 12th, this date, 1877. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background. On March 1st, 1876, so a year prior, Deputy U.S. Marshal Alfred Duckworth and another Deputy Marshal confronted 2 men wanted for transporting alcohol in North Carolina on a road in a county just north of South Carolina, and told them that they were under arrest. One of the men demanded that Marshal Duckworth read the warrant out loud. After reading it, the men feigned that they would accompany him and asked him to put his pistol away. As he did so, one of the men shot him in the neck before fleeing. The 24-year-old marshal died of his wounds. The man who shot him fled to South Carolina, just across the county line and state line, where he was arrested, but he again escaped.
Oh my goodness.
Then, almost a year later, on February 12th, brings us to our date in history, in Greenfield County, South Carolina, Deputy U.S. Marshal Van Hendricks and several other marshals entered the cabin of the escapee and were greeted by shotgun fire. Marshal Hendricks was struck and killed instantly. The suspect fled, but later turned himself into the sheriff's office. He was tried and acquitted on grounds of self-defense.
Oh.
And he never faced the charges for the first murder that he committed. Unbelievable. It's crazy.
Is. Yeah, that is crazy.
Gary, that's not the end of the story.
Oh.
A year later, on April 19th, 1878, Deputy U.S. Marshal Rufus Springs and several revenuers raided a still in South Carolina. During the raid, Marshal Springs stood outside and was outside of the still and was looking for a suspect when a shot rang out, striking him down. It was the same suspect who also murdered Marshals Duckworth and Hendricks.
Oh.
The suspect was again acquitted.
Oh, my. What?
Marshall Duckworth and Spring were both 24 years old. No information on Hendricks.
That is unbelievable.
He murdered 3 U.S. Marshals.
And then was acquitted.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. We were talking about this. We don't know if that was like the local injustice, if you will.
Yeah.
A bunch of good old boys and that, and it's crazy, man. It
is. That's a lengthy one for that time, but it.
Yeah.
I mean, three U.S. marshals. Yeah. That's crazy. Well, this is Corporal James Michael McWhorter, I guess. Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Office of Agricultural Law Enforcement out of Florida.
You would think that Department of Agriculture has a law enforcement unit.
Oh. Huh.
I guess they do.
Yeah. So this is end of watch, Saturday, February 12th, 2022. So just a few years ago. So Officer James McWhorter was crossing from a northbound inspection station to a southbound inspection station. This was near the agricultural inspection station in Yulee, Florida. And so as he was crossing, his vehicle was struck by an oncoming pickup truck, and Officer McWhorter was instantly killed. But all the occupants of the truck suffered non-fatal injuries. Officer McWhorter had served with the Office of Agricultural Law Enforcement for 2.5 years. Survived by 4 children, parents, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and a fiance. So he's 31. So again, not very long in his service, but unfortunate. It's every day. You just don't know.
A lot of officers killed in traffic accidents, because they're driving all the time.
Right. Yep.
All they do is drive all the time. And it looks like this time it just, for whatever reason, he didn't see a truck coming or something. And
right.
Anyways.
Yep.
Terrible crash.
Sure is.
All right. So last time we started talking about threats to our homeland. And we went through an editorial piece written by a retired Denver police officer. And that article came out of Law Enforcement Today online. And today I said we're gonna get into church threats. And so from last week when we talked about that, we talked about the threats to the homeland and the possible threats of a multifaceted attack by like Al Qaeda,
right?
And so that's kind of like, we just fear mongering with conspiracy theory, all this stuff. There's some chatter out there that raises concern of our officials, and we don't know everything that they know, but it's brought to the forefront. But here's some information that I got, and this information, Gary. This also comes from a retired police officer. He's a retired Sergeant, Keith Graves, and he has his specific ministry is to churches and their security units in churches.
Oh, and, okay.
Yeah, I looked it up and I read it, and I saw his website, and I'm really impressed by how he writes and what he does and his recommendations. In fact, I've incorporated some of this training when I'm doing church security seminars. Now, as you know, the Strong Blue Line Foundation, our main mission is to bring hope to law enforcement officers. We say we want to make strong officers with strong relationships. And of course, ultimately that relationship is with the Lord Jesus Christ and of course their family relationships and relationships to others.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing we also do in support of that ministry is we give training seminars for church security.
Oh, that's
and
good.
we've got a couple. I mean, and these are really getting popular. They never used to be as popular. And I told you we got one in coming up in Louisiana, a rural part of Louisiana, where we've got 70 or 80 people that's already signed up to come.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable from several of the churches. I mean, we've got them coming from small churches, where you got a church of 50, 60 people, and we got them coming where you got a security team of 8 to 10 people from one church. So you got all kinds of people interested. Anyways, I found this article. Matter of fact, it was passed on to me from one of our guys, the security guys at Water Springs Church. He passed along this article to us. And it's entitled this: Virginia Church Disrupts Pre-Attack Surveillance. Are churches being targeted? And this was written on January 17, 2025. And he talks about 2 incidents that happened, one in the east and one in the west. The first one happened, and this happened on January 15, 2025. 2 churches in Fairfax, Virginia, reported suspicious activity to law enforcement, to a local law enforcement. In both cases, 3 men entered the church properties and began taking photos and videos of the interior and exterior. One man took the lead, asking staff detailed questions about the church's security systems, including whether the cameras would live stream and whether they were monitored constantly. The other 2 men focused on recording and taking photographs. Gary, to me, that would contemplate suspicious activity.
Absolutely. I agree.
I mean, the guys come on the church property and they're taking, even if they stop at the church and start taking pictures, why would they do that?
Right. Yeah, that is a huge red flag. I mean, asking the staff detailed questions about the security systems, things like that. It's like nobody would just do that.
There's unless they're like, hey, we're selling a security system and we wanted to know. But they come in, identify themselves, introduce themselves. But even like something like that somebody came in, hey, I'm from ABC Security Systems and we'd like to give you a price on new security system.
Right.
I would follow up, make sure that's who they said they are.
Uh-huh.
Leave the card and we'll get back to you.
Yep. And
then if you're interested in that, then do the research and make sure they're legit, from a legitimate company if you want to do that. So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself on what to do to prevent this. But here's the deal. It said, when challenged by the church staff, the man refrained from answering directly and quickly left the premises in an SUV. Their behavior raised red flags, and as it should.
Yeah. And
local law enforcement advised churches in the area to remain vigilant, urging them to report similar incidents immediately. See, here's what I go back to, Gary. So many people are scared. Well, I don't want to bother the police. They want you to report these things.
Right.
That's how they gather intelligence. It may be just a one-off that somebody happened to drive by the church and say, oh, that's a pretty church, or we're building a church and I want to build it kind of like that. So they take a picture of it and move on. It could be as innocent as that. And so what if it is? That's it. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
But it also could be somebody planning something nefarious. It says that the Fairfax County Police noted that these tactics, that is gathering information about security measures and photographing sensitive areas, are often used during pre-attack reconnaissance. Churches were reminded to treat such situations seriously, as failing to confront suspicious individuals could make them vulnerable targets. So that's some good advice, Gary.
It really is.
If and we need to talk to our staff, and if you see somebody, or if you're a member of the church and you see somebody out taking pictures of the church, get a license plate number, maybe take a picture of them, safely do so, don't do anything, and then just report that to the church. You don't need to talk to them and confront them yourself. Let the church staff know.
Exactly.
But it's important to get a license plate if you can. If you can get a picture, if you can do so safely, do that. That's great. That's great to do. Our church at Water Springs, we have cameras all over the place.
Yeah, which is good.
Anybody on the church, outside of church property, smile because you are on candid camera. Just keep that in mind, okay? We'll just say that because that's okay to say that. We have security measures in place at Water Springs.
Yep.
So that was one incident that took place in Fairfax, Virginia. Then there was a second incident just days earlier. A similar incident occurred at a church in Southern California. In this case, 3 individuals also conducted surveillance, taking photos and videos while asking security-related questions. Yeah, that makes me think: is this the same people?
That's me too.
Or is it? I mean, the same MO. 3 guys taking pictures, asking questions. Law enforcement identified one of the men as. Get this, Gary. Law enforcement identified as one of the men as having ties to the Taliban.
Oh.
Open source intelligence reveals photos on his social media accounts showing him in traditional Afghan fighter attire, holding weapons in association with individuals making pro-Taliban comments.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's kind of frightening there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. That's here. I mean,
yes, and that was last month. That was a month ago when this happened. That a guy identified himself with the Taliban is taking pictures, doing recon at churches.
Wow.
The Southern California safety team immediately confronted the individuals and contacted law enforcement, who escalated the case to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. This decisive action likely prevented further reconnaissance and ensured that the church was marked as a hard target. I remember when the Joint Terrorism Task Force just started. This was back, can I say it, right after the turn of the century? That sounds like a long time ago, doesn't it, Gary?
It does.
When I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency as an analyst when I was in the reserves, we were part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Oh.
And so we worked with that, and we just gathered information from all kinds of sources. And that was in response to the 9/11 attacks in 2001. And so these terrorist task force are continue to go on. And that's what they do. They gather information and feed it to the other agencies. And then he talks about here, and this again, this is Keith Graves, retired sergeant, police sergeant. He mentions here the similarities between the incidents, and he mentions 3 things that are similar. Number 1, pre-attack reconnaissance. The individuals in both cases took photographs and videos of sensitive areas and asked detailed questions about security systems. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever for anybody to do either of those things.
No.
None whatsoever. The only person that would legitimately ask questions like that is if you hired a consultant and you knew who they were to help you out. The police asking it, legitimate law enforcement asking it to help you out, or somebody that they're getting a bid from, a legitimate person that you're getting a bid that you want them to maybe take over security or something. But there's absolutely no reason for anybody to ask these questions and to take these pictures.
Yeah.
It's like somebody walking into your house, taking pictures of your house, going in your backyard and taking pictures, reaching over the fence. There's no reason for them to do that at all.
Yeah.
No, and so they need to be confronted and challenged. And if you can get the ID, if you can, that's great, man. You just, take pictures or whatever.
Yep.
So, and secondly, he said coordinated attacks. The timing, methods, and demographic details of the group suggest possible organized effort to identify vulnerable churches. And so, like I said, these things are three guys driving SUVs doing the same thing on opposite sides of the country, but within a few days of each other. You know, you just wonder, Gary, how many were doing this and they were never reported to the police.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They were never caught, or whatever. It's crazy. And, you know, another thing, people could call up the church and legitimately do so and say, hey, I'm you know, thinking about coming to church with my family there. I'm wondering what kind of safety measures you have in place.
Yeah, right.
And that's legitimate. And I think a church should say, well, we do have a safety, you know, we have cameras and we have a team in place. That's all that needs to be said.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go into specific details about things.
No.
And I would just refer them to, however your church is set up, refer them to the head of the security team, or refer them to the pastor, the pastoral staff, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they can talk to that person. But the staff members or congregants do not need to be giving out information about security measures that the church has.
I agree.
So, and then number three, and that brings us to the third point he mentions, the importance of intervention. In both cases, the action of vigilant safety teams disrupted potential reconnaissance and deterred further activity. So it's important. And a lot of these guys, if they're looking to hit somebody, they're looking for the soft targets.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be a hard target. Your church, you want to make your church a hard target, so they'll go on. The bad part is they're going to find a softer target.
Exactly. Yep.
So we need to try to find out identify these individuals. And if this is what they're doing, they need to be arrested and put in jail or taken out of the country, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, and he writes here, he says, and we're going to finish up with this. We're going to continue this series, if you will, because I think this is very important.
I do too.
I want to get this out. But he finishes up today with this. He says, these similarities underscore the need for churches nationwide to remain alert and proactive. Two important things that says that we've got to be alert and we've got to be proactive. We can't put our head in the sand and say it's not going to happen to us.
Right.
We can't put our head in the sand and say, well, we just trust God and go on. You know, I've written a book about this, Pistol in the Pulpit, about we teach safety. Do we trust God? Absolutely, we trust God.
Mm-hmm.
We pray, and our trust is in the Lord. But God has also given us common sense.
Exactly.
He calls husbands to love their wives by protecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Gary, somebody breaks into your house at night and you and your wife are there, you don't get down on your knees and say, Lord, I pray that this person will go away.
Right.
You get up and you defend your wife.
Oh, that's right.
You get up and you take action to stop it, and stop it immediately.
Yeah.
Whatever action that you and so we need to do the same thing as a church. Yes, we depend upon the Lord. Yes, we do that. But He's also given us the skills, the abilities. He's instilled in us warriors. He used warriors to defend Israel.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to do that. God is a miracle-working God.
That's right.
He worked miracles to take them out of Egypt. But they got in the middle of the desert and he told Moses, tell Joshua to get arms and go defend. And so God raises up warriors to defend His people.
Mm-hmm. And he prepares them.
Pardon me?
Yeah, he prepares us. He prepares.
Yes.
He wants us to be prepared so that, you know, you give the example of the house scenario, and that would be an unfortunate situation. But if we're not, you know, if we're aware of our surroundings and aware of, you know, different kinds of things to prepare, even a natural catastrophe, it's like, you know, do you have fuel in your car? Do you have, you know, things like that things that we can do to be proactive.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, I'm going to go drive across the Idaho mountains in the middle of winter on a quarter tank of gas.
Exactly.
With no blankets, I'm just going to trust God.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
God gave us a brain.
Yes, common sense. That's right.
Now you sound like President Trump. Common sense. Gary, we got to get out of here, man.
Holy moly!
We are way over time, and I'm going to get chastised by my boss, the station manager for. Hey, thanks for listening in.
We better continue this next time, this conversation, because it is important.
We're going to talk about, and of course, this church security, this bleeds over into all kinds of security for your own homes and everything else.
It does, yeah.
So thank you for listening in. If you have a topic or question you want to address on Cop Talk, please send me an email. You can email suggestions, questions, or comments, or complaints to coptalk@therev.fm. That's coptalk@therev.fm. Thought from the good book today. One of Pastor Ty's favorite verses. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Thank you for joining us and helping to make the thin blue line a strong blue line.
Cop Talk is presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and sponsored by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Questions and comments are always welcome by email to coptalk@therev.fm. Listen, follow, leave a review, and share this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube. And visit thestrongblueline.org to learn how you can be a supporter. Cop Talk is a Rev FM production, produced and edited by Gary Austin. Thank you for joining us on Cop Talk.